What would you do if all your private messages were suddenly exposed to the world?
A hacker group just leaked 1.1 terabytes of Disney's internal Slack messages.
Thousands of leaked emails.
The hacking group stole Microsoft corporate emails and other secret material.
Imagine waking up to find that a hacker had breached your account and posted every conversation you've ever had online. Or perhaps a glitch in your messaging app shared your history of private thoughts with everyone on your contacts list. A sick feeling in your stomach would appear as you realized that everything you've ever said, every intimate detail, every offhand remark, every sensitive piece of information was now a public spectacle. In today's digital world, nothing is truly secure anymore. There are constant data breaches, and we're well aware that these happen. Yet we still decide to keep a permanent trail of our digital conversations that could be hacked at any time when we don't have to. We need to realize how easily things meant for private can become public and protect ourselves against what could be potentially devastating consequences. In this video, I'm going to make a case for why I think people should use disappearing messages. I'll show you how easily your private conversations can fall into the wrong hands, even if you think you're not a target, and how even harmless messages might be used to exploit you, damage relationships, or expose you to unexpected risks. I'll also explore the profound psychological shift that occurred when we moved from fleeting face-to-face conversations to a world that digitally archives everything we say and where nothing is truly forgotten. And finally, I'll show you how to turn on disappearing messages for various messaging platforms and some best practices. Let's start by exposing just how easily your private messages can be leaked, often without you even realizing it. One risk is a hacker might break into a company that has all your messages stored in their databases, giving the hacker access, but also leading to these messages being potentially leaked on the internet. John Chambers, the former CEO of Cisco, once said, "There are two types of companies, those who have been hacked and those who don't yet know they've been hacked." If you're using a platform where a company stores all of your messages permanently, the chances of these messages one day becoming public are higher than you might think. Another way your messages might get accessed without your authorization is if your phone is stolen and the thief is able to break into the physical device, which is holding a record of all of your private conversations and emails. Or if the phone of anyone you've ever had a conversation with is stolen, also giving them access to private conversations you've had. What about your messages ending up in public record? This is a risk that many people have probably never considered. But if you or anyone you're in contact with ever gets caught up in a legal case, your message history might be subpoenaed and your private conversations suddenly become accessible to anyone online through public court filings. These are just 3 examples of message leaks, but there are so many ways that having a permanent record of all your conversations is a huge liability. So why does this matter? Let's think about all of the ways that someone getting hold of your private messages could be damaging. First, the stakes are particularly high if you're a targeted person, like a journalist or activist. This applies anywhere in the world, but it's especially true under oppressive regimes. Permanent messages means authorities can sift through your past conversations to find anything that could be used to paint you as a dissenter. In such situations, your message history isn't just a liability. It can be a tool for repression used to track down allies, map out networks, and dismantle opposition. Disappearing messages become a critical layer of protection, helping to safeguard both you and the people you communicate with from political oppression. Many of the people watching this video are probably lucky enough to live in countries where they don't feel the need to worry about situations like this. But regimes come and go, while your data is forever. You don't know what future political group might come to power and what they might find in your permanent record of messages to target you. Keeping our conversations around forever can seem nice, but it comes with risk, not just for ourselves, but for those we care about. Your messages also put you in greater danger when it comes to being targeted by malicious actors. If your conversations are leaked, hackers can study how you communicate, who you talk to, and what you share. They can learn about your habits, your relationships, relationships, your work, and use this information for social engineering and phishing attacks, or exploit you in other ways, like for blackmail. Again, you don't have to feel like you're particularly interesting or important for hackers to target you, because AI makes analyzing leaked private communications easier than ever. And these sorts of attacks are becoming increasingly automated and more frequent, deployed en masse. If an attacker is able to easily craft highly personalized messages, not only might things like your bank account be at risk, but it makes your family members easier to target too. What else might happen if your conversations end up in public record or leaked on the internet? You open up personal and intimate aspects of your life to public scrutiny. Conversations that were never meant for public eyes could be picked apart, misunderstood, taken out of context, or used against you in ways you never intended. Think of all the ripple effects that exposed messages could have in your life, affecting your workplace or personal friendships. Something you said years ago in the heat of the moment might be misinterpreted or damage relationships. At the very least, even if none of these risks concern you, there's one thing that disappearing messages are essential for: sensitive content. If you're sending things like passwords to people in permanent messages, you need to really rethink your choices. Take the SolarWinds hack, for example, which was one of the most significant cyber attacks in recent years, causing $100 billion in damages. It turns out that an employee had shared a critical system password in a private message on GitHub. Passwords are something you should never leave hanging around in permanent messages. Disappearing messages are a critical tool in your privacy toolbox because they help you limit your attack surface and also protect those you communicate with from being unnecessarily exposed or targeted. These are some of the practical implications of etching our communications in stone. But now I want to get a little philosophical on you. There are important psychological shifts that have happened in our society since our interactions with people have been given digital permanence. When our lives shifted online, fleeting conversations turned from existing only in the moment to being forever.
All this information used to be ephemeral, meaning it disappeared, right? Like the morning dew, it would be gone. No one would remember it. But now these things are stored. Now these things are saved.
In the past, what we said or believed wasn't set in stone. People could grow, change, leave old opinions behind. But now, every thought shared digitally is preserved, trapping us in a permanent self, making it easy for others to hold past versions of ourselves against us, even when we've moved on. It also makes it tempting for us to cling to old versions of ourselves, which stifles our growth. And knowing that our words are forever and can be judged against us in the future, a part of us leans towards self-censoring instead of exploring new ideas. It's a subtle shift, and I'm not sure that we're even fully conscious of it, but the effect is that there's increased pressure to conform and create safe, curated versions of ourselves instead of being authentic. Disappearing messages restore the natural flow of communication. They allow us to speak, think, and change freely without worrying that every word will be preserved or weaponized later. We don't need our digital history to define us. Our conversations can serve the moment instead of becoming liabilities for the future. I think that keeping some messages from the past can be nice, but I like the idea of being intentional about what I keep instead of saving it all by default. So I turn on disappearing messages for almost every conversation that I have, and increasingly use disappearing emails. Now let's look at how to enable disappearing messages on some of the most popular messaging platforms. Broadly speaking, disappearing messages will start a timer countdown, erasing a message from both devices as soon as time runs out. It will only apply to messages that were sent after the timer was set and has no effect on earlier messages. And the timer on both devices doesn't start at the same time. So if I send a message to you, my timer will start as soon as I send it, but your timer won't start until you have read the message. So that means that you're not going to miss any important messages if you don't check your phone for a while. To set up disappearing messages by default on Signal so that you never forget to turn it on for new conversations, go to Settings, Privacy, and click on Disappearing Messages. You'll see a list of options including setting a custom time. Set your preference, which will be used by default for all future new chats you create. And for more sensitive conversations, you can manually change the time period for that specific chat or message anytime in the future. In WhatsApp, go to the Settings menu and select Privacy. Click on the Disappearing Messages option and select your default duration of 24 hours, 7 days, or 90 days. As with Signal, these are now your default settings, but you can change it for specific chats or conversations as needed. To enable disappearing messages in Facebook Messenger, tap the person's name to reveal their info and scroll down until you see Disappearing Messages. Click on it and you'll have the option to have messages erased after 24 hours. To send a disappearing message on Telegram, known as a self-destructing message, there is no default option. And actually what's going on behind the scenes is super confusing and contradictory in their FAQs. According to Telegram's frequently asked questions page, disappearing messages are only available for messages in secret chats or media in other chats. But I found that I could enable messages in cloud chats too. Now remember, cloud messages, or every default message on Telegram, is not end-to-end encrypted, which means it's sitting in plain text accessible to Telegram servers. I couldn't find anywhere where the self-destructing cloud messages actually deletes them from Telegram servers or not, so this option is likely giving you a false sense of security if you use it. So let's skip cloud messages and just explain how to use disappearing messages for Telegram's secret chats. To start a secret conversation, click on a person's profile. Tap on the 3 dots and click Start Secret Chat. Both people have to be online for you to start this chat, which is an obstacle to private messaging on the platform. Once in that secret conversation, set self-destruct timer and choose your preferred time. Finally, in session, there is no default timer for disappearing messages. To set a timer, go to each specific chat, and here your options are a little bit different. You can either choose for the message to disappear a certain period of time after it's read, meaning that the recipient won't ever miss your message, or if you're concerned that someone might not check the app for 6 months and you don't want messages hanging around this long, you can set them to expire a certain amount of time after they've been sent. This means that whether the recipient has read it or not, it will be deleted after the selected period. Disappearing messages is also something you can consider for emails, and they're available on privacy-focused email providers like Protonmail. You can even use this feature if you send an email from Protonmail to a non-private provider like Gmail. It's a great tool because it will make sure that your email is automatically deleted from both the sender's and recipient's inbox after a set period, preventing your emails from being stored indefinitely and potentially being accessed or misused in the future. In Protonmail, you can set up self-destructing emails if you're on the phone app by tapping the hourglass icon on the bottom of the screen and choosing an expiration time. When you finish, tap Set. On the web app, click the 3 dots and expiration time and choose the date and time you want it to disappear. If you're sending the email to someone not in network, i.e. to a Gmail user for example, you'll also have to set a password. Once you've sent the email, you'll see an hourglass next to it in your sent box. Be aware that for email disappearing messages, the timer will start and end at the same time for both senders and recipients. Finally, some tips and best practices for disappearing messages. What time should you set for messages to self-destruct? It depends how sensitive they are. I have all new chats set to expire on Signal after 4 weeks. It's plenty of time for me to review conversations and save anything I need before it disappears. I can make the time shorter for specific chats or messages if the situation warrants it. Before I enabled my disappearing messages by default, I found quite often I'd be chatting to someone for a while, not realizing it wasn't turned on. And it wasn't until I or they said something sensitive that I didn't want hanging around forever in a chat history that I'd realized I'd never enabled disappearing messages. So now I enable this setting by default so that every new chat starts with disappearing messages turned on. I can always disable it if I don't want it for that chat, but I'd rather the default be private. One thing to be aware of is that there are certain legal situations where disappearing messages aren't allowed. For example, if you're involved in an investigation. Once an investigation has begun, parties involved are usually required to preserve all evidence, including including digital communications. This is called the duty to preserve. Deleting messages that could be relevant to a case, such as by using disappearing messages after becoming aware of an investigation, could be considered spoliation of evidence, potentially leading to legal penalties or accusations of obstruction of justice. Some industries, such as finance, healthcare, and legal services, also have specific rules requiring the retention of communications for a set period of time. It's crucial to understand whether these regulations apply to your business. The fact that governments and certain industries mandate message preservation speaks volumes. We might not always recognize the value of disappearing messages, but those in power certainly do. Disappearing messages aren't about hiding anything. They're about protecting yourself from having your words taken out of context or used against you in ways you never intended. Disappearing messages can make the difference between safeguarding your privacy and leaving yourself exposed. In a world where basically everything we say is stored and potentially scrutinized indefinitely, disappearing messages give us back control. Whether we're safeguarding sensitive information, limiting our exposure, or simply reducing the clutter of our digital lives, turning on disappearing messages is a small change with significant impact. It allows conversations to feel natural and temporary again. Disappearing messages are a great tool in your privacy toolbox for this increasingly permanent digital age. If you found this video helpful, please consider supporting our work to re-normalize privacy. NBTV is a non-profit that creates free educational material to help people protect against overreaching surveillance. Consider visiting nbtv.media/support to set up a monthly or once-off tax-deductible donation. And don't forget to check out our merch shop for more ways to help support our mission, including buying t-shirts like this one here.